Fluoride chemicals in Australia are either sodium fluoride or two silicofluoride chemicals. Sodium silicofluoride, which is a solid, and hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is a liquid. A lot of the silicofluorides come from Incitec Pivot in Geelong. Sodium fluoride used to come from aluminium smelting, but nowadays most of the fluoride chemicals used are the two silicofluorides, and they can either be produced locally from Incitec Pivot, or they can be imported from China particularly, or sometimes Belgium and Japan. I mean, they are waste products of the fertiliser industry. The silicofluorides are waste products of the fertiliser industry. What happens is that there's fluoride in the phosphate rock along with silicon. When they make superphosphate fertiliser, they're converting insoluble phosphate to soluble phosphate so the plants can take it up. They crush the phosphate rock, they mix it with sulfuric acid, and then you get two gases coming off. You get hydrogen fluoride and you get silicon tetrafluoride. These two gases go into a wet scrubber and they spray water in from the top. And when the gases dissolve in the water, they combine together and they form a new compound called hydrofluorosilicic acid. They then keep on recycling that water through the wet scrubber, dissolving more and more of these gases as they're coming off, until they get to about 25% hydrofluorosilicic acid, which they then send off. They don't clean it up any more than that. They send it off in tankers, rubber-lined tankers, to fluoridation plants which are attached to water treatment plants.
Goodness me, I don't think most Australian people are aware of where this chemical actually comes from.
I just wanted to add too, with the sodium silicofluoride, what they do is they then react the hydrofluorosilicic acid with sodium carbonate, or another name for that is soda ash, and then you get the precipitate. They filter the precipitate off, they dry it, they bag it, and they send that to areas that are further away where they can't tanker the liquid form.
What do you think, just as a matter of interest for the viewers, do you think people would actually be horrified if they found out that this is actually what they're drinking?
I think they would. Most people don't want to be drinking toxic waste of any form, and particularly from an aluminium smelting toxic waste or fertiliser toxic waste, you know. And that's why the government tries to deny that it is toxic waste, but that's exactly what it is. They don't deliberately make these fluorides as a product. They're actually a waste product of other industries.
So have these industrial chemicals ever been properly tested for safety?
Never, no.
Anywhere in the world?
In the early days, they did toxicity studies on sodium fluoride, but that was pharmaceutical grade sodium fluoride. They have never ever tested the silicofluoride chemicals, particularly the industrial grade that they use, because they don't clean them up. They are allowed to have small amounts of heavy metals in these chemicals.
The silicofluorides, that's fluorosilicic acid and the sodium salt of it, they're nowadays sourced from the phosphate fertiliser industry, down here in Geelong from Incitec Pivot fertilisers. They're a waste product from manufacturing the fertiliser. After the rock's crushed and boiled up in sulfuric acid, the waste fumes that would normally go out the chimney stack would carry a huge amount of fluoride. But they capture it in the wet scrubbing system, the pollution scrubbing system, and those tanks of captured pollution effluent are then what's sold to water authorities for putting into water supplies as fluoridation. So it's really a raw, unpurified pollution extract from industry, which is really unfortunate because they're contaminated as well. I mean, they're 90% fluoride, but they also contain mercury, arsenic, lead and other very, very toxic heavy metal contaminants. But the other part of your question was about testing for safety. No, those silicofluorides have had, to the best of my knowledge, no safety testing at all. And by that I mean the kind of safety testing that's required for medical drugs. They've never gone through that process. In the US, they've never been approved by the FDA for human administration, and in Australia the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, has never undertaken any testing at all. So government relies on vague claims like, well, we don't see people dropping dead in the street when we fluoridate a town, so therefore it must be safe.
Does it get eliminated out of the body?
Fluoride is cumulative. You can eliminate, a healthy person can eliminate about half of what they ingest per day. The rest is stored in bones or affects thyroid gland, pineal gland and a few other body systems. But a person with poor kidneys eliminates less than half, almost none. So people with kidney disease are at especially great risk of toxic effects from fluoride.
That's very interesting you mentioned Belgium, because Belgium is where Queensland get their fluoride from.
Oh, of course, yes. Well, see, they're so smart, they don't have it. So they send it to us to put in the dumb Australians' water, you see, to dumb us down. And it's working. But yes, that's your silicofluoride poisons. That is a combination of your sodium silicofluoride and your sodium hexafluorosilicate. So drink up Queenslanders, drink up Australians. And this is also the other one. This is also the other one you get in your water supplies, which is the sodium fluoride. This is the bed buddy of this one. Dangerous, toxic by it's poison, of course. Toxic by ingestion. Target organs are your kidneys, your bones, your central nervous system, your gastrointestinal system, and your teeth. So how smart are we?
So to me, no matter how much we're out there saying it's a toxic waste, people don't get it. It doesn't sink in because it is beyond their belief that a government would do this. Like, no, I've had people say to me, well, why would a government put poison in our water? And I go, well, I don't really know. I think it's got something to do with money, you know? But they don't get it.
How it's made, and the components, you know, it's not just fluoride, but silica fluorides come packaged up with other contaminants such as lead, arsenic, cadmium, radon, mercury. They all come because it's an industrial waste product that they actually dump into the water supply with no processing, straight from the chimneys, repackaged into the water. And so people often don't realise that they're not even getting a pharmaceutical grade fluoride in the drinking water. I mean, that to me is a total insult. And even more worrying is that politicians don't know where the fluoride comes from. They don't. Now, I've just found out we're getting our source from China. So we're getting all their industrial pollutants repackaged for us. You don't know what's in there. Who's tested it? Where are the test results to show what the ingredients are, what it's made up of, how much fluoride is in there and how much other stuff is in there? We don't know. The politicians don't know. Who's running the show here?
It's interesting Sandy should bring up this point. She is correct. The vast majority of the time, we basically have no idea of the contaminant levels in the toxic junk cocktail of each batch of fluorosilicic acid or its bed buddies. She is also correct that China supplies some fluoride to Australia. However, soon after interviewing Sandy, when filming the Adelaide portion of this documentary, we were fortunate enough to be handed an exclusive Freedom of Information package by the Honourable Anne Bressington MLC and Dr. Andrew Harms. This includes analysis of various batches of silica fluoride poisons, each of which is unique in chemical composition. The full documentation of the raw chemical analysis is available at the link provided on the screen. This freedom of information will shock most viewers. Aluminium, up to 71 milligrams per litre. Arsenic, 5.2 milligrams a litre. Mercury, 7.9 milligrams a litre. Even uranium. And the list goes on and on. We are even so blessed to have sodium fluoride certificate of analysis from Shanghai, China. But before we all rush to our kitchen taps for a drink, back to Sandy.
I think that water authorities are always looking to make a bigger profit and to look to buy it in cheaper, and the Chinese sources are much cheaper, and they're following the American lead, and this sourcing their fluoride, sodium silica fluoride from China has become a big trend in America, which Australian water authorities are now starting to follow one by one. So in the past, we had probably most of our fluoride products coming from local chemical companies, but that's shifting now.
So I've travelled around and we're now in Port Macquarie in New South Wales, a beautiful coastal town. Dr. Alexander, are most other dentists you know aware that water fluoridation chemicals are actually industrial grade waste products?
Well, from my personal research, I would say the majority of them are not aware. A lot of them do know, and they do know what it is, but they still believe somehow that the government is right in doing what it's doing, and they believe that they're doing citizens a favour by supporting water fluoridation. However, when I graduated from university, we weren't given any information about where it came from. We all assumed it was calcium fluoride. We would have thought they wouldn't have put anything else other than pharmaceutical grade fluoride into the water. Then the ADA was very good at covering up what the actual chemicals being used were and where they were from. Many times I contacted the ADA and said, what exactly is this chemical that's going into the water? Where is it from? You know, at that stage I already knew, and I had a pretty good idea of what it was, but I got replies like, thank you for your comments, Dr. Alexander. Don't bother contacting us again, basically. So now, probably in the last, I don't know, 5 to 8 years, the ADA has actually put on their website the fact that it is hydrofluorosilicic acid is the main chemical being used in Australia to fluoridate the water supply. So there is absolutely no excuse for any dentist out there to say they don't know what it is.
Do you think they'd be shocked if they knew that this was the case?
Yeah, well, I've confronted quite a few dentists and said, do you know, do you realise? And they have acted shocked, but not shocked enough to go away and do anything about it or do much research.
Do you know where the fluoridation chemicals come from?
I have been told that the ones that are coming to Port Macquarie are coming from Incitec Pivot, a phosphate fertiliser company in Geelong, and I suspect that we will also be receiving chemicals from China.
Fluoridation chemicals are made from?
They're made from superphosphate manufacturing, also aluminium production, and they're collected in the smokestacks, they're wetted down and collected in a liquid form, put in barrels and marked highly toxic, dangerous, S7 poison, and shipped off to councils to drip into our water supply. Industrial grade, we're drinking industrial grade fluoride chemicals. Yeah.
From the fresh fluoridation battle hotspot of Port Macquarie, we travel to the long-time stronghold for the fluoride faithful. But as unbelievable as it may seem, even this neck of the woods has been giving fluoride pushers headaches of late. Thanks to the courageous individuals such as Anne Bressington and a certain prominent dentist who the Australian Dental Association now wishes never called himself a past president. But some histories are set in stone.